Hey everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Adriana Stein, and I founded and operate a marketing agency in Hamburg, Germany. And I wanted to give a huge thank you to Network Events for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today about a really unique and awesome topic, which is the importance of storytelling in marketing. So let's get started. So I thought about, since we are talking about storytelling, I would start with a bit of storytelling of my own background. So I'm originally from Oregon in the US, and I've been living in Hamburg, Germany for the past 5 years. And after having been here for so long, I've come to realize that there are quite a few things that marketers need to keep in mind about getting your message across in a local and culturally relevant manner. When it comes to Americans and Germans, I've also learned that we have quite vastly different ways of communicating, and I have been able to learn from that and combine the strengths of both to make a really, truly epic marketing strategy. So how did this journey take place? Well, I was studying anthropology in the US, so I've always really been interested in different cultures and the ways that people communicate. And I studied abroad for a bit in Spain, where I was learning Spanish. And after my homestay was done, then I was backpacking across Europe, where I ended up in Hamburg. So you can see also the top image is from Denmark, the image on the right is Czech Republic, and then below is actually Morocco. So I went a bit outside of Europe as well. And then the last country on my trip was Hamburg, and I completely fell in love with the city and decided this is sort of where I wanted to make my new home and also work in a really international atmosphere. And that has totally been the case since I've been here. So one of the most important things that I had to learn was very completely different elements of culture. So a few examples are basically that we're like obsessed with customer service in America, and in Germany it's the complete opposite. There's basically no customer service. Whereas in America we're quite rebellious and don't like to follow the rules. Germans tend to really strictly follow the rules and really respect and appreciate them. Same goes for the openness towards public nudity, whereas in America this is quite something that you just don't really do. It's actually illegal in most areas. In Germany, it's a lot more open and okay. Germans are also a lot more straightforward and assertive. They don't like a whole lot of small talk. I actually really appreciate this because you get to the point a whole lot faster. And so basically all of these things have combined to create a truly different corporate and marketing culture. And I was able to learn this when I first came here. I was learning German in a language school and also working as a freelance content writer and translator. And I had an amazing experience to work with a German marketing manager for a year and basically learn all the ins and outs of marketing and especially SEO, which I have then been able to really apply and heavily expand on since basically developing into an agency. So fast forward 5 years later to today, and now I'm running a marketing agency where we specialize in B2B marketing strategies for English speaking and German speaking markets. And actually, it doesn't really matter where you're marketing to. It's still, storytelling is still one of the most important elements that you have to consider, really, regardless of the culture, regardless of location. And this is why I wanted to really dive into this topic and how to apply it to your marketing strategy. So we as marketers, we're always searching for ways to grab people's attention. People on a daily basis now, especially because of technology and globalization, we see so many different advertisements. It's insane. It's like thousands every day. And in the past, advertising used to really focus on fear and shock and urgency. And with so much competition and so many choices that like we have today, we as marketers have to take a very different approach. And we truly owe this to our customers as well, because fear and shock and even shaming someone into buying your product or service is absolutely not the way to go about marketing. It should rather be instead about establishing trust and building long-term relationships, because that's what keeps people with your company, it keeps people with your brand, it keeps people coming back, and it's just in general so much more human focused and really a much better thing to do as your job as a marketer, to really be working at a human level. So then how can we do this? What is the trick to triggering attention, motivation, and this persuasion that we're looking for in order to bring someone from just sort of knowing about us to actually making a purchase? Well, this is precisely where storytelling comes into play. So for marketing, storytelling is probably one of the best tools for captivating your audience and clarifying your message. So before I explain how this works, let's take a little bit of a step back and look into how storytelling developed in history, because this will clarify a lot about why it's so important to use today. So storytelling is truly in our nature. Humans are storytellers. We have visual stories, traditions, narratives, all encompassing experiences. You know, you imagine people sitting around the campfire. That was really how humans evolved. We have one shared cultural experience. That's our way of communicating as humans with stories. And this then becomes our most potent and effective tool for capturing our audience's attention even today. Storytelling is also important from a scientific perspective, and it truly does affect the brain. So stories engage the auditory, olfactory, visual, sensory, and motor cortices of our brain. What this comes down to is basically our brain is geared to focus on stories because we want to connect on an emotional level and on a human level. That is something that really makes us essentially human. Stories create what's known as oxytocin synthesis, which is associated with empathy, trust, and relationship building. And we like to think of oxytocin in our private lives and, you know, building relationship with our friends, with our family, with our loved ones, our partners. But this is the same exact concept that can be applied in marketing, even in B2B marketing. We call it business to business, but we still need to keep the human element there. This is super important because this brings us to feel stories. And a good story is a shortcut to the part of the brain that creates trust and clarity and creates this long-lasting, sustainable relationship that is super, super important to really keep our customers engaged and interested in what we're doing today in terms of marketing. So why is storytelling valuable in marketing? Because story-based marketing triggers attention, it motivates, and it persuades. So a lot of the problem that I've experienced, especially having a very external look at a lot of different B2B companies with my clients, we have this phrase that basically B2B stands for boring to boring, and this should really not be the case, because in the end, you are still marketing to humans, you're still speaking to humans, you still need to build relationship with those humans, even if it's a very different experience than, you know, selling someone shampoo or something on the internet. So adding a story to your messaging is what adds this human element. It awakens empathy, it connects people on an emotional level, it gives your brand a personality, it starts engaging people, and this then works into a storytelling framework, which I will touch more on what this framework involves a little bit later. But basically, as a summary, it puts your data into context. So why does it matter? Why should a person care? And also makes it easy to understand, as well as, of course, unifies it across all of your different marketing channels. So how do we start building a great story? Well, the basics of storytelling and marketing involve three different components: personal, emotional, and have supporting data. So the personal side of things is that it really needs to speak to your individual, let's say, buyer persona. Even a buyer persona is basically this outline of your potential customer and what you need to know about them and understand about them in order to solve their problems and speak to them in the manner that is the most useful. So when you combine all of that information, that personal information on your audience, then you know how to speak to them emotionally, and then, of course, also logically, having this supporting data and unifying it into one message, which is your entire storytelling framework across your brand. So, how we break this down now is we take the basics of a good story. We have two characters, the hero and the helper. So let's take a look at those two sides of the spectrum. We'll start with the hero. So I mentioned buyer persona before. The hero is your ideal buyer persona and how you bring them to life. The person who needs your brand, your product, your services the most, and then try to bring them to life by making them as human as possible, by speaking to the complexity, by giving them a goal and a sense of purpose, sharing their worries and fears. In the marketing world, this would actually be known as pain points, how we solve pain points with our brand or product or service. And then, of course, combining all of that and making it relatable to this specific persona, making it as personal, as relevant for them as we possibly can. Then when it comes to the helper, this is your brand. This is you help people with your brand, your product, your service. You help them solve a certain problem. So in order to develop your personality, I actually find this part sometimes a little bit more difficult. But what you can do is start by going back to your why. So you would ask questions like, why did I get into this business? Why did I build this product? What makes me different or us different from all the others from our competition? And even if you're working at a larger company where you may not know these answers in detail or you're new to them, then go and ask the CEO, go and ask the founder, go and ask the people who know the answers to these questions, or can at least start helping you answer these questions so that you make sure you clarify that across all of your messaging. And here's the part that I think is rather unique in my style, is I tend to use a rather American style approach of storytelling, basically by using this sort of fuzzy feeling. So America is famous for these Hallmark movies where everyone ends with a happy story and it's all like puppies and kittens. And I think in marketing, it is true that we need to make people feel comfortable, feel safe, feel satisfied. And so we can use this approach in our marketing strategies as well. Because in the end, when we have happy endings, we have happy feelings. And these happy feelings then lead to the action, meaning a purchase or a repeat purchase even. So to dig a little bit deeper here, we awaken emotion through motivators and trigger words. A few examples of trigger words I've written here are adventure, togetherness, peace of mind, self-expression, convictions, and comfort, which go along the goal of belonging, comfort, and admiration. This is just one very generic example. I would encourage you to go much, much deeper into what your specific audience needs, what phrases they use, what language they use. And one tip I can give you here is to actually look at how they are speaking about your brand, your product or service on other channels, and then really use that language within your messaging directly. If you're a new company and you're just starting out, then look at how they're speaking about similar products and services, and then try to improve upon that, improve upon your competitor strategies in your own marketing messaging. So once you've developed your relatable, human-like hero, you've given your brand a face, you've given your brand emotions, then you need to focus on trying to solve the potential customer or the hero's problem. So in order to do this, you need to ask a few important questions. First is that, what does your customer stand to lose if they don't reach their goal? And then, how can you, the helper, help the hero reach their goal? And that is basically where you start crossing from just storytelling as basic storytelling and then bring it into the marketing world with a specific call to action. A call to action means something that you want your audience to do. It could be making a purchase, but it could also be other things like downloading something, signing up for something, sharing something if it's on social media. The correct call to action, there's no one good answer there. It really depends on your campaign. But basically, your goal is point 3 here. Your hero is convinced that you have helped them solve their problem, and then you show how your brand actually does that for them. And that's where the story ends, basically. So one important thing that I like to mention, that I think also comes from my personal perspective, is make sure that you keep it short and interesting. And this is so true when you're in the B2B world, but especially even where I'm working, which is with complex B2B tech. And a lot of times we as marketers or whoever my contact is, they've been at the company for a long time. They know so much information. The amount of information they know about what their product is capable of is incredible. However, we still have to make everything, our messaging, palatable and understandable for our audience, because that's who needs to buy from us in the end. So I think this is one of the best things that I have learned from German culture, is the importance of keeping things clear and straightforward and to the point. But then I can still also add my American side of things with this interesting, captivating, emotional, fuzzy feeling of a perfect happy ending. And through the combination of both, you get clarity, but you also get emotion. And that is really one of the best ways that you can maintain your audience's attention. So I'm just going to summarize basically what we've gone over here and how to captivate and clarify your messaging with storytelling. So we start by simplifying complex marketing campaigns and breaking them down into a captivating and unique story that highlights the data, but also the human side of things. Then we focus on capturing their attention, sustaining interest, and inspiring action through our helper and through our hero personas that we then bring together in their own story. And then we start to cut through this monotonous marketing message, this mass media. It's, going so much more into a deeper level with personalization. And this is what starts to build meaningful relationships. And then from there, you've truly started to show your audience what you stand for, and that will definitely pique their attention. So I mentioned at the beginning a storytelling framework, and there are basically a few main points to this that you can keep in mind if you want to sort of bring like a quantifiable way of developing storytelling in your marketing message. So you first start by engaging your customers and guiding your marketing strategies based on this. Here is super important, again, the buyer persona, because once you understand who you're talking to, then that informs your entire marketing strategy and how you handle that across all your channels. So if we want to break it down and make it super simple, basically your goal as a marketer is to bring your audience from point A to point B. Point A is, what does my ideal customer want and what's stopping them from achieving it? And point B is, what does life look like when they get what they want? So it's a very typical before and after picture First, they are dissatisfied before purchasing from you, working with you, and then after they've worked with you or purchased from you, then they are satisfied. And so you have to ask yourself as a marketer, how do I bring them along that journey from point A to point B so that they are satisfied? And that is what is the base of your story. That is your storytelling framework. So while this is a good start to using storytelling in your marketing, the real power of storytelling is to use it to guide your overall marketing strategy, not just once, but really for forever, as long as your company exists. Which is something that I will help you dive into with my concept of a storytelling framework that I've developed at my marketing agency. So what we will do is basically take your point A to point B, develop some processes and documentation for how you can actually apply that across your messaging. And then we also combine it with a 6-month content plan so that you get the best of both worlds. This is basically the concept of my storytelling framework. So if you're interested in finding out more, then please check out my website that goes a lot more into detail about how this works, adrianastein.com/storytelling framework. And I'm happy to start out with a free discovery call where we can discuss some ideas and I can clarify more about how this works. So thank you again so much for listening, and hopefully you've understood a lot more in depth about how storytelling works. Okay, take care. Have a good one. Bye.